Tonight, Sultan of Sokoto and the leadership of the Christian Association of Nigeria call for openness in the fight against terror, also questions the status of security intelligence. There appears to be more trouble in the People's Democratic Party as Kebbi Court orders Uche Secondus reinstated, just as the party settles for Elder Yemia Kiumi as acting national chairman. It's 10 years since the bombing of UN building in Abuja as families of victims remember their loved ones. An explosion rips through Kabul International Airport as Islamic State takes responsibility for blast. Plus, international news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, Lagos State Debt Management Office set to secure fresh 185 billion naira bond for funding of various projects.
On sports news tonight, para-powerlifter Latifa Tijani becomes the first athlete to win gold for Team Nigeria at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics.
And from Abuja, erstwhile intelligence officer Deputy Commissioner of Police Abba Kyari to know his fate soon as panel investigating his indictment submits reports to the Inspector General of Police.
And more concerns are being raised by prominent Nigerians and groups on the security lapses being witnessed across the country. In the third quarterly meeting of the Nigeria Interreligious Council in Abuja, discussions centered on insecurity and the recent attacks in Plateau State. Now, for the Sultan of Sokoto, it's difficult to understand why security operatives will say that gunmen attacked a military institution, killing people. According to him, going forward, it is now time to identify the killers and bring them to book.
Government officials, religious and traditional rulers are meeting for the third time this year under the umbrella of the Nigeria Interreligious Council to discuss issues of national security. The past few weeks have seen an upsurge in killings, kidnappings and banditry, especially in the northwest, the northeast and most recently in Jos Plateau State, where scores have died in a recent attack. According to the religious leaders, the situation is made even more worrisome as some of them continue to preach hate while intelligence agencies fail to provide prompt information.
Unknown gunmen invaded people's homes. How can they be unknown? Unknown people kill so many people and then nothing is done. Where are our intelligence agencies? Don't we have a proactive intelligence agency that will think ahead of anybody, any criminal trying to do something?
Every form of killing or criminality should attract the response of the government because life is life. Either in reprisal attacks or otherwise, several attacks had happened again after that of the unfortunate killing of our Muslim brothers. Even yesterday, as you have all seen in the news, August 25, 2021, several people were still killed in Plateau State, which look like reprisal attacks.
The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, and the Governor of Plateau State, Simon Lalong, promised more responsiveness on the part of the government to address the insecurity challenge in the country. However, they want citizens to support their efforts.
Leaders that are fond of making statements that do not in any way bring succor and comfort to our people, but further deepening discord, ought to be cautioned. And I believe that the security operatives listening to me will take that lead and deal with those steps and put in place mechanism for conflict resolution as well as dealing with instigators of conflict.
If we are not able to expose the criminals within us, then how will government find solutions to some of these problems?
After about 2 hours of deliberations, members of the council then go into a closed-door session. It is expected that deliberations reached here will help to resolve the situation in the country.
Nigeria's social cohesion index is 44.2%, signifying that the country is not as socially cohesive as it ought to be. That's according to the African Polling Institute's 2021 Social Cohesion Survey report. At a dialogue and launch of the survey held in Abuja, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, notes that Nigeria's diversity is not its problem. He explains that the use of identity politics to access opportunities in all areas of Nigerian life is at the root of the lack of social cohesion, especially while the country is dealing with limited resources. Our correspondent Kayla Megwa reports.
Social cohesion is all about functionalism. It is the extent to which people in society are bound together, integrated, and share common values. In the context of nationhood, it helps us understand what makes us Nigerians. And that's the reason for this social cohesion dialogue.
If Lord Lugard had foreseen these things, if he had foreseen the rise of a black nation, capable by the sheer size and quality of its population by naturally dominate its space, if Lord Lugard had foreseen these things, he would never have amalgamated the North and South to create one country.
This social cohesion survey took into consideration 10 key indicators, among which are identity, in which 49% of Nigerians are disappointed in the country. 26% of Nigerians trust the Buhari administration. 74% of Nigerians believe there are people above the law. 63% of Nigerians score the government poor in its efforts to tackle corruption.
Nigeria has failed to explain its challenges, from Boko Haram to the raging cases of banditry and farmers' elders crisis. There is no national narrative. In the absence of national narrative, people provide their own narratives, which are often divisive. The problem is to understand it and explain it. A problem understood, explained, and collectively owned is a problem half solved.
The Vice President calls out identity politics and restates the need to oppose all seeking to gain from Nigeria's disintegration.
We must recognize the ways in which we perpetuate institutional discrimination and cause people to see their identities as weapons for procuring opportunity, often at the expense of others. We see this whenever Nigerians are denied opportunity on the basis of their state of origin or because they are non-indigents. The classification of Nigerians as indigents and non-indigents is a form of apartheid and contradicts our declared aspirations towards equality and unity.
A resonating thought among all speakers at today's event is the fact that Nigerians do not hate each other. True Nigerians believe in their potential and are ever hopeful. The political will, however, to ensure that this cohesion is achieved is what is the crux of the matter. Criminals should be treated as criminals, and the victims of such criminal acts be given the closure that they need for the country to develop. Kayla Magwa, Channels Television News.
And the United Nations says it will continue to support the Nigerian government's efforts towards stemming the tide of insecurity. The UN resident coordinator, Mr. Edward Callon, gave the assurance at the 10-year memorial held in honor of those killed in the 2011 bombing of the UN house in Abuja. Family members of the victims, including their children who attended the event, are asking the federal government to tackle insecurity in the country. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, has more.
Solemn moment as officials of the United Nations in Nigeria and family members gathered to honor the memory of those killed in the August 2011 terrorist attack on the UN house in Abuja.
Ms. Felicia Nkoku, UNDP. Mr. Stephen Obama, UNDP.
23 people, including 13 UN workers, guards and visitors, were killed and more than 60 others were injured in the car bombing, which was the first attack on a diplomatic organization in Nigeria.
I'm so pleased we are having this ceremony in the same building that was blown apart by heartless corruptors. And I'm also pleased that the government, in defiance to terrorism, has actually rehabilitated this building, and we are here today commemorating our colleagues and partners that we lost in this building.
Outside the hall, Family members and some UN officials lay wreath in honor of the victims. It's an emotional moment for 10-year-old David Musa, who was just a 1-month-old fetus, as at the time his dad was tragically killed in the bomb blast.
Sometimes I feel like I wish I had a friend like him to talk to share my problem with, but I thank God for life. I thank God for the mom God gave me. She stands there as a man for us, as a father to us.
They also have a message for the government.
They should try all their best to stop all these things. It's too much. There are many widows in town. Widows are increasing. Bringing up children. We thank God for this side. What of those people that do not have help? How are they going to bring up their children if they remain on the street?
For us, the message is clear. We will not be cowed by violence. It will not stop us to continue to work for humanity. And we will remain defiant to terrorism as far as the UN is concerned.
These flowers laid by relations and colleagues of those killed in the August 26, 2011 attack here at the UN House are signs of respect and honor for the dead. However, what they hope for and pray is that the government here in Nigeria will be able to address the incessant killings and forestall further bloodshed in the land. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
We continue with security, where the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya, is optimistic that the Nigerian Army, collaborating with other security agencies, will ensure that Nigeria overcomes its security challenges. Speaking with journalists after visiting the Nigerian Army 22 Armored Brigade headquarters and the Nigerian Army College of Education in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, Lieutenant General Yahya says he is satisfied with the conduct of his men in the 2 Division of the Nigerian Army.
Assumption of command is usual for the Chief Army Staff to go around on the ground and get first-hand a brief from field commanders and get on-the-spot assessment on the troop preparedness and conduct of their operations, and also now give necessary directives and guidance and also interventions. And that what brought me to 2 Division Nigerian Army. I started in Ibadan. From there I came to Benin, 4 Brigade. From there I drove now to 22 Brigade. And that's what I have done, to interact with officers and soldiers, appreciate what they are doing, and now see the challenges firsthand with a view to addressing them. That's what brought me here. And I am pleased with the conduct of the troops across the 2 divisions that I have visited. I have just urged them to continue to maintain the momentum and even improve on what we are doing. And together, in synergy with other services and other agencies, we will overcome some of these challenges.
The new Director of Defense Information, Major General Benjamin Sawyer, has been commending Channels Television for the quality of its programming and news reportage. Speaking during a courtesy visit to the Abuja office of Channels Media Group, Major General Sawyer explains that many Nigerians look up to the media outfit because of the outstanding quality of her staff. He adds that the military is always ready to collaborate with Channels Television in the interests of the nation's security.
It's a pleasure that I'm here to interact with you personally. First and foremost, to congratulate Channels Television for what you are doing to the nation. I've followed the Channel Television since when I was a lieutenant, when I used to be a guard commander at the radio station at Obalende, and equally to when I was a guard commander at Dodam Barracks. I always enjoy your programs, and even now I don't miss politics today. Anytime, anywhere I am. In fact, sometimes on Saturday I forget they don't do it. I equally don't miss the Sunrise Daily, where people are on the hot spot, and sometimes you listen to people who don't have the wherewithal to discuss, but they appear. And I like the way your staff take them on. Your medium is a very large medium. Your medium is a medium that people look up to watch and be informed. So we have to collaborate with you so that whatever information is being churned out will be churned out correctly and within the context of national security and national interest. Yes, it's a private organization. There's freedom of press. So far, Channels is doing very well. And we want to further come to cement that relationship so that it can be strong.
And talking about Channels Television and Sunrise Daily, contrary to the news on social media that our Sunrise anchors have been arrested, this is just to clarify that no such arrest was made, albeit our anchors were invited for a meeting by the National Broadcasting Commission in Abuja, and they've since returned from that meeting. In the meantime, the Department of State Services, DSS, in a press release also clarifies that no Channels Television journalist was invited by the DSS and that earlier stories on social media are false and misleading. In part two, after the break, the leadership of the National Association of Resident Doctors holds National Executive Council meeting in Benin, insists the strike continues. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Sultan of Sokoto and the leadership of the Christian Association of Nigeria call for openness in the fight against terror, also questions the status of security intelligence. There appears to be more trouble in the People's Democratic Party as Kebbi Court orders Uche Secondus reinstated, just as the party settles for Elder Yemi Akiomi as acting national chairman. It's 10 years since the bombing of UN building in Abuja, as families of victims remember their loved ones. And President Muhammadu Buhari makes public for the first time the financial statement of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. A large explosion rips through Kabul International Airport in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. Staying with security, the governor of Sokoto State, Aminu Tambuwal, has declared what he calls a total war against the activities of informants supplying bandits with information that have led to security breaches in the area. He made the declaration when he visited Sabon Bini, Goronyo and Isa local government areas in the eastern flanks of the state where bandit attacks have been on the rise. According to him, the state government will mobilize men of the vigilante and provide them the needed incentives to support the efforts of conventional security forces.
The government of people of Sokoto State is working hand in hand with the federal government and in particular security agencies that are here in Sokoto State to ensure that we nip this in the bud. We arrest this situation and we re-establish peace and peaceful coexistence amongst our communities. I appeal to you, I urge you to expose any informant that normally exposes or give out information on movement of people and particularly, especially that of security personnel to the bandits and kidnappers. Informants are our enemies. We must take appropriate measures to address and checkmate their activities. Even if an informant is your son or your daughter or your grandson or your brother, please provide information on him to the government. We are ready to take measures on them and to bring them to law and prosecute them accordingly.
Meanwhile, more than 2 months after pupils of Saleo Tanko Islamia School in Tegina Town, Rafi local government area of Niger State, were kidnapped, those still in captivity have regained their freedom. An aide to the governor confirmed the developments this evening. Hundreds of pupils and students were kidnapped from the school on the 30th of May when bandits attacked the community. The freed pupils are currently on their way to Minna, the Niger State capital. Let's go over to politics now, where the National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party met today in Abuja and agreed that Elder Yemi Akinwumi should assume the leadership of the party in acting capacity. Before today's meeting, two national deputy chairmen of the party, Senator Sulaiman Nazif and Elder Yemi Akinwumi, had separately announced that they had assumed office as national chairman. At today's meeting, those in attendance nominated Elder Akinwumi to lead the party pending when all the outstanding issues in the party are resolved.
The two deputy national chairmen of the People's Democratic Party from the North and South are attending this emergency National Working Committee meeting to resolve the recent leadership crisis in the party owing to a court order restraining Prince Uche Secondus from parading himself as the party's national chairman. That development on Monday led to the emergence of the two deputy national chairmen of the party, reason for which this meeting is holding to resolve the deadlock. At the end of the meeting, which held behind closed doors, the National Publicity Secretary told journalists that Mr. Yemi Akinwumi has been accepted to act as the party's national chairman.
We have moved faction in the People's Democratic Party. The motion was moved, and Elder Yemi Akinwumi was unanimously approved as the acting chairman of our great party.
At a separate meeting, the PDP Board of Trustees wants members to ensure that the party is united ahead of the 2023 general election.
We have to discuss seriously the state of our party. We have to find ways and means to accept and do the best thing we can to keep this party moving.
Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar notes that the party's ability to manage its internal crisis is an indication that the PDP can manage the nation's challenges.
We have proved to Nigerians that we have that ability to resolve our internal crisis, and therefore the crisis or crises, I don't know what is the plural of crisis, I mean, that is facing this country, from banditry to kidnapping, you know, name it, for God's sake. We have that capacity to resolve all those crises.
The PDP leadership crisis took a new twist on Monday after a court in Port Harcourt ordered that Secondus be restrained as national chairman of the party, just 1 week after the PDP governors and the National Working Committee said they had resolved the crisis.
Meanwhile, a vacation judge of the Kebbi State High Court has ordered Prince Uche Secondus to return to his position as national chairman. Justice Nusirat Umar, who gave the order in a suit brought before her in Benin Kebbi, says she was satisfied after reading the affidavit of the respondents that an interim order should be granted on the purported suspension of Prince Secondus pending the determination of the case. Three concerned members of the party, Yahya Usman, Abubakar Mohammed, and Bashir Suleiman, are the claimants in the case, while Prince Secondus and the PDP are the defendants. And former Minister of Aviation and a serving Senator, Stella Odua, has dumped the People's Democratic Party, PDP, for the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, in Abuja. She was received at a brief ceremony today and admitted into the party by the chairman of the APC Caretaker Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee, Alhaji Maimala Buni, and the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, Alhaji Abubakar Atiku Bagudu. Also present was the Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodinma, and Deputy President of the Senate, Ovie Omoagege. She now becomes the latest high-profile member of the former ruling party who has recently joined the APC. While welcoming her into the APC, the chairman of the Extraordinary Caretaker Convention Planning Committee congratulated her for joining the party and assured her of rights as all other members of the party. Away from politics to health, there seems to be no end in sight to the federal government's and resident doctors' face-off as the leadership of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, NAD, in an extraordinary meeting today, unanimously decided to continue with the strike. In a 12-point communique after the meeting, the association frowned at what it calls the continued nonchalance of the authorities in resolving the matter. According to NAD, after 23 days of the industrial action, its members in 23 centers under the GYMS platform are yet to be migrated and captured under the IPS platform for payment of 3 to 4 months blocked salaries. The group also expresses dismay that after the president's directive that all technicalities be resolved in the ongoing dispute, not one item on the table has been resolved. On the news at 10 returns, the Inspector General of Police receives an investigative panel report on the DCP Abba Kyari, plus President Muhammadu Buhari announces NNPC's profit after tax situation for the first time. The data is made public in its 44-year history. Please stay with us. The Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has ordered that a Nigerian, Isiaka Musa, and 2 Guineans, Traore Yakubu and Mohamed Berete, be further remanded in custody for attempting to smuggle large quantities of elephants' tusks, pangolin scales and claws out of Nigeria. Justice Tijani Ringim made the order after the defendants were arraigned before him by the Nigerian Customs Service. Our judiciary correspondent Shola Shirley reports.
In a 4-count amended charge put before the Federal High Court Lagos, 5 persons were listed as defendants. In the first count, 3 Guineans, Muribin, Mohammed and Sediti, all having the same surname Berete, were charged alongside another Guinean, Traore Yakubu, and a Nigerian, Isiaka Musa, with the exportation of 196 sacks of pangolin scales, 1 sack of pangolin claws, and 29 sacks of elephant tusk, which they had prepared for exportation. 2 of the defendants were said to be at large, and 3 of them, a Nigerian and 2 Guineans, were present in court for their arraignment. The prosecutor, Smart Akonde, told the judge that the defendants, who lived in the Lekki Ajah area of Lagos, were arrested on July 28, 2021, with the wildlife animals classified as endangered species and attempting to export the items valued at 22.3 billion naira out of the country without lawful authority. The charge was read to the defendants through an interpreter, and they all pleaded not guilty. The prosecutor then asked the court to adjourn for trial. But counsel to the defendants, Olayinka Lawal, told the court that he had a pending bail application which was ripe for hearing. The prosecution disagreed and submitted that, having been filed before arraignment, the application could not be said to be ripe.
We can oppose bail even when it's a bailable offense if there are circumstances to show that the defendant may not be attending the court or might escape from the hands of the law.
Nigerian jump bail, we have seen it all over the places. Nigerians. So their right to bail is fundamental, is constitutional.
In his ruling, Justice Tijani Ringim agreed with the prosecution and granted a short adjournment for the necessary papers to be filed and served. He then adjourned to September 1 for the hearing of the bail applications, while also ordering that the defendants continue to be remanded in the custody of the Nigerian Customs Service. Shola Shirley, Channels Television News.
Let's go over to Abuja studios where Linda Kibe is standing by with more stories. Hello, Linda.
Hello, Millicent. Good to see you. The Inspector General of Police, IGP Usman Alkali Baba, has received the report of the Special Investigation Panel investigating the alleged indictment of the erstwhile head of the Police Intelligence Response Team, DCP Abba Kyari, by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. According to a statement released by the Force Public Relations Officer, Frank Mba, the report was submitted by the chairman of the SIP, DID Joseph Ebunike, at the Force Headquarters, Abuja. DIG Ebunike notes that the submitted report is an outcome of a painstaking, transparent and exhaustive investigative process, adding that the document contains the case file of the probe, evidences and findings, as well as testimonies from DCP Abakiari and other persons and groups linked to the matter. The IGP, who commended the panel for the work done, reiterates the commitment of the force to join to the course of justice. And President Muhammadu Buhari has announced the declaration of a profit after tax of 287 billion naira in the year 2020 by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC. According to a statement by the President's media aide, Mr. Femi Adesina, the announcement is in fulfillment of an earlier probe by the federal government to publicly declare the financial position of the NNPC. The statement notes that this is the first time in the 44-year history of the establishment that the audited report would be made public. Our State House correspondent Gloria Umezuki reports.
President Muhammadu Buhari, who doubles as the Minister of Petroleum Resources, is announcing a net profit of 287 billion naira for the state-owned oil company, nearly 2 weeks after signing the Petroleum Industry Bill into law, a move which is expected to see the unbundling of the corporation. A statement from the President's media aide, Mr. Femi Adesina, states in part, the NNPC losses were reduced from 803 billion naira in year 2018 to 1.7 billion naira in the year 2019, and the eventual declaration of net profit in the year 2020 for the first time in its 44-year history.
In another statement from Mr. Adesina, the President is commending the managers of the nation's economy following the outcome of the second quarter report by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, showing a third consecutive quarter of positive growth of Nigeria's economy, the highest quarterly growth in GDP since 2014.
According to the statement, the President believes that the report reflects Nigeria's economic rebound following the COVID-19-induced contractions seen in the first and second quarter of 2020. The statement reads in part, the main drivers of the second quarter 2021 economic growth include trade, information and communication, mainly telecommunications, transportation, electricity, agriculture, and manufacturing. The service sector specifically recorded its strongest performance in more than a decade, growing at 9.27%. These main growth drivers of the second quarter performance are reflective of the gains from easing restriction of movement locally and internationally, and the improvement in the business and economic environment compared to the same period in 2020.
And the President assures that recent reforms and efforts like the renewed focus on gas development, as well as the passage and assent to the Petroleum Industry Bill, will certainly attract new investment to the oil and gas sector and create conditions for more robust levels of growth in the country. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News. The House of Representatives Committee on Finance has made several findings as it wraps up the first phase of its interactions with government agencies on the 2022 to 2024 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, MTEF. One of the key findings is that some agencies have leveraged on the Establishment Acts to spend their internally generated revenue, thereby denying government of a needed revenue.
For 2 weeks, these federal lawmakers in the House of Representatives Committee on Finance probed the expenditure and revenue profiles of various government agencies. The intention of interaction with the heads of the MDAs is to plug financial leakages and instill fiscal discipline in a country plagued by acute revenue shortages and a disturbing budget deficit. On the final day of this phase of the exercise, the committee gives a brief highlight of some of the observations during the meetings. They include agencies of government embark on extra budgetary spending contrary to the Constitution and the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Some agencies are underreports on the actual revenue generated. Agencies are in the habit of recycling projects without consideration for need.
Committee was also, found out the flagrant disregard for instant laws where revenue generating agencies refuse to remit their revenue to the appropriate accounts.
Another observation during the meetings is the inability of government agencies in the petroleum sector to establish the country's actual daily premium motor spirit consumption, as data from the relevant stakeholders in the downstream sector were found to be conflicting. This was evidenced in the information offered by the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency about its revenue during Thursday's meeting.
Are you bothered? Are you concerned as a Nigerian about the rate of under-recovery and the money we spend on under-recovery?
Yes, we do, Honorable Chairman. And because of that, the agency was the first to recommend the issue of deregulation.
Is that an answer? I said, are you concerned about the pilferage of PMS? You could keep on supplying fuel to a station that does not even have capacity to take it.
Indeed, the National Assembly has a huge role to play in addressing these practices by some government agencies, which puts a major strain on the nation's resources intended for development.
Now, any agency who refuses to honor any invitation that is relating to finance must go to jail. The head of that agency must go to jail, because Nigerian, if you look at the budget, the MTF of 2022, we have over 5 trillion deficit. That means we have to borrow to finance the budget, whereas we have the money within.
At the end of this exercise, if any agency fails to appear before this committee so that we can screen before bringing your budget, it will not be approved.
Some agencies which are yet to appear before the committee will be re-invited when the committee resumes on September 17th, 2021. That's all from Abuja. Now to Teniola for business news. Thanks a lot, Linda. Welcome to Business News. The Lagos State Debt Management Office says it's in the process of issuing another round of bond to the tune of 185 billion naira for the funding of various projects in the state. The permanent secretary of the Lagos DMO, Olujimige, who made this known today, explained that the bond, which will replace the 46.3 billion naira as well as the 6.9 billion naira bond under its Series 2 issuance program. He also mentioned that this early redemption has immediately reduced the state's total debt obligation and average cost of debt service. In June this year, the state's House of Assembly approved Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu's request for 85 billion naira special dispensation for bond redemption, as well as 85 billion naira for bridge loan for a quarter. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry has commended the 5.01% strong growth recorded in Nigeria's GDP within the second quarter. In a statement released today, the LCCI explained that the upward trajectory indicates that Nigeria's economy is recovering fast and sustained by the reduction in supply chain disruptions, especially as there was no serious lockdown on economic activities in the second quarter. The Commerce Chamber also points out that the growth projections for Nigeria will be reviewed upwards in the coming weeks if the positive performance is sustained. Meanwhile, The Economist magazine's ranking of global recoveries placed Nigeria at 4th position in the world as at the end of 2020. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the appointment of Dr. Simon Harry as the new Statistician General of the Federation and head of the National Bureau of Statistics. He succeeds the outgoing Statistician General, Dr. Yemi Kale, whose second 5-year tenure expired on August the 16th, following his reappointment by President Buhari in 2016. Dr. Harry, who is currently the Director, Corporate Planning and Technical Coordination at the NBS, joined the erstwhile Federal Office of Statistics as Statistician 11 in 1992 and rose to the position of Substantive Director of Statistics in 2019.
Outside our shores, Statistics South Africa has revised the country's economy upwards by 11% following a rigorous benchmarking and rebasing process. The Statistics Office says the revised estimate of gross domestic product last year was 5,521 billion rand compared to the previous estimate of 4,973 billion rand, an increase of 11%. Stats SA also revised the annual GDP growth rate for 2020 from -7% to -6.4%. Next month, Stats SA will publish the GDP for the second quarter of this year. And back home, banks in the country have warned that customers who do not comply with the new foreign exchange policy may face criminal prosecution by the Central Bank of Nigeria. In a syndicated emails to their customers, the banks mentioned that defaulters of the new CBN Forex policy may face sanctions such as being barred from accessing FX from the official market, restrictions on their bank accounts for a certain period, as may be determined by the CBN. The banks added that customers could only apply for PTA and BTA once every quarter and were liable for $4,000 and $5,000 per quarter per applicant, respectively. The local equities market makes a quick rebound from the losses recorded in Wednesday's trading session after investors made some bargain hunting for some high-value stocks. Laddie Williams has details of today's trading.
Today, the local bourse gained 15 billion naira after losing about 5 billion yesterday, allowing the bull to stage a comeback. Value and deals traded were much higher compared to yesterday's session, while volume was lower at 186 million units, changing hands in about 3,595 deals. However, today's gains were marginal as the all-share index rose by about 7 basis points. The trio of Sovereign Insurance, Lafarge and Honeyflower were the most traded for the day by volume. Over to the sectoral chart now, we have oil and gas, insurance and banking in the green, with insurance at the top over 2% up. Let's see the top gainers counter. We have UPDC, Eterna PLC and ICO Insurance are topping that counter. Meanwhile, Ikeja Hotel led the losers counter down 10%. Closing at 1 naira 26 kobo. We also have ABC Transport and SCOR in that list. Well, it's been a choppy week. Let's see how the market closes tomorrow. And that's the stock market report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you.
Thanks a lot, Laddie. Let's find out how the world's major global equities market ended Thursday's trading session. And that's business news tonight. It's back to Millicent for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Teniola. America will hunt you down and make you pay, says U.S. President Joe Biden to Islamic State after the terror group took responsibility for the explosion at Kabul's international airport today, where at least 60 people, including 12 U.S. troops, have been killed and dozens more injured after 2 powerful explosions took place outside the international airport amid a huge evacuation effort from Afghanistan. Let's head over to our London studios where our correspondent Simon Pusey has more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Japan has suspended the use of about 1.63 million doses of the Moderna vaccine due to contamination. The health ministry said foreign materials were found in some doses of a batch of roughly 560,000 vials. the company which sells and distributes the vaccine in Japan, said Moderna had put 3 batches on hold out of an abundance of caution. Russia has reported a record 820 coronavirus-related deaths amid a surge of cases blamed on the Delta variant and the slow rate of vaccinations. The government's coronavirus task force also reported 19,630 new COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours. The new figures bring Russia's total fatalities from COVID-19 to 179,000, the highest toll in Europe. The air roller fire in Northern California has now burned at least 1,000 acres and prompted evacuation orders near Valetico. Aerial images showed thick, dark plumes of smoke rising into the air as aircrafts drop water to try and slow the spread. Meanwhile, the South Fire in San Bernardino County has consumed more than 500 acres and destroyed multiple homes. Officials in Ethiopia's Amhara region say fighters from neighbouring Tigray have killed at least 35 people and looted property in the South Gondar zone. Residents of Nefas Melcha town said 30 civilians were killed during days of fighting between the Tigrayans and federal and regional troops supported by local militias. They said government buildings, hospitals, schools, banks and homes were all destroyed. Firefighters in the southeastern Spanish town of Peñíscola have rescued a teenager after a building collapsed, trapping at least 2 people. The boy was around 15 years old and had been staying in the 3-story building, which collapsed for unknown reasons. Around 140 firefighters and emergency personnel worked through the night on the recovery operation. They are thought to still be trying to reach 1 other person in the rubble. US Vice President Kamala Harris has left the Vietnamese capital Hanoi, ending her first official trip to Southeast Asia.
We welcome stiff competition. We do not seek conflict.
In a news conference marking the end of the visit, she said the United States does not seek conflict with Beijing, but they will speak up on important issues. In visits to Singapore and Vietnam, Harris charged China with bullying its Southeast Asian neighbours. Beijing has accused the US of meddling in regional affairs and disrupting peace.
We're going to speak up when there are actions that Beijing takes that threaten the rules-based international order. Again, such as activity in the South China Sea. And the issue in particular of freedom of navigation in that regard is a vital issue for this region.
And finally, meet Paris's newest tourist attraction, an amphibious bus. Known as ducks, the buses drive as normal along the city streets, but can then instantly be converted into a river-going pleasure boat. According to its operators, it is the first amphibious vehicle to gain a license to carry tourists on the roads and waterways of Paris. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. And just before we bring you some sports news, more than 2 months after pupils of Saliu Tanko Islamia School in Tegina Town, Rafi local government area of Niger State, were kidnapped, those still in captivity have finally regained their freedom. An aide to the governor confirmed the developments this evening. Hundreds of pupils and students were kidnapped from the school 30th of May when bandits attacked the community. And reports right now say that the freed pupils may have arrived Minna, the Niger State capital. Continue to bring you the latest in that story. And now to Ayotunde Balogun with sports news.
Many thanks, Millicent. Some cherry news for Nigeria as Latifa Tijani has become the first athlete to win gold for Team Nigeria at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics. Tijani lifted 117 kg in her 4th attempt, which was 1 kilogram short of a world record of 118 kilograms to win the powerlifting women's 45 kilogram category. She was a gold medalist at the Brazzaville 2015 Africa Games and a silver medalist at the Rio 2016 Paralympics.
1 minute.
Big win there for Latifat. Moving on to football, Chelsea FC and Azzurri of Italy midfielder Jorginho has been named UEFA Men's Player of the Year 2020-21. The 29-year-old beat Blues teammate N'Golo Kante and Manchester City's Kevin De Bruyne to the top award. Thomas Tuchel took the Men's Coach of the Year award after guiding Chelsea to triumph in the UEFA Champions League for last season. Barcelona's Putellas clinched the Women's UEFA Player of the Year award. Reigning Champions League holders Chelsea FC have been drawn in Group H against Serie A giants the Old Lady of Turin, Juventus, Russian club Zenit St. Petersburg and Swedish side Malmo in the group stage of the Champions League. Premier League champions Man City have been drawn to face PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, RB Leipzig and Club Brugge in Group A. Man United face Villarreal, who beat them in last season's Europa League final, as well as Italian club Atalanta and Swiss side Young Boys. Liverpool are in a tough group with Spanish giants Atletico Madrid, Porto and 7-time European winners AC Milan. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. That's a wrap in sports news. It's back to you, Melissa.
Many thanks, Ayotunde. And the main news again. Today, Sultan of Sokoto and the leadership of the Christian Association of Nigeria called for openness in the fight against terror, also questioned the status of security intelligence. Also today, there appeared to be more trouble in the People's Democratic Party as Kebbi Court ordered Uche Secondus reinstated, just as the party settled for Elder Yemi Akumi as acting national chairman. And 10 years since the bombing of UN building in Abuja, families of victims remembered their loved ones. Also today, President Muhammadu Buhari made public for the first time in 44 years the financial statement of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. And today, President of the United States, outraged over attack on Kabul International Airport, says America will hunt you down to the Islamic State. And that's your news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Mwaka. Have a good night and stay safe.